Well, this is the 10th show I've done, and I suppose the first thing I should do is apologize that I'm still not making much of an effort to produce good television. Eventually I'm going to try to do some scripted television, some television that has some sort of continuity, makes sense from show to show, the whole thing. But for now, this is what you get. Today's show, it's about cigarette taxation. I did a 5-minute segment on the subject, but it really deserves, a much better treatment, because it's almost a perfect example of what, how America has just lost its soul. I smoke. I've been doing it for 30 years, more than 30 years. I made a dumb, stupid decision when I was 11 years old, and I'm addicted to nicotine. Some people quit, no problem. I'm not one of those people. Okay, big problem quitting. All right, it's part of my life. Cigarettes. It's part of how I think. It's part of how I live. So you can point a finger, you can scowl, you can say, what an asshole, whatever you want to do. That's your business. But do it with some facts, okay? You can malign and ridicule people who smoke all you want. I mean, that's your right. But what you can't do is slander the truth and get away with that without somebody criticizing you. And somebody saying, well, wait a minute, you can't get away with that crap. And so, the governor, Whitman, years ago, started with this whole, let's use cigarette taxes to finance the government. Because these scumbag Republicans had to figure out a way to make poor people pay to fund the government. And so, the two biggest sources of income, two biggest sources of revenue for the state, cigarette taxes and the lottery. Think about it, back I read a few old Supreme Court cases, and back in the the 30s, when it came to subject of taxation, the court used terminology like it has to be a fair and equitable system intended to equitable distribution of the tax burden. That's how they described it. It has to be a reasonable scheme for equitable distribution of the tax burden. But that's not what they're using taxes for now. They're just exploiting minorities. And so right now, it's you're going to lose election votes if you smoke cigarettes. Even though there's 30% or 28% or 27.5% of the population that smokes, the fact is cigarette smokers don't vote that policy. They're not given an opportunity in a two-party system. So the two parties have decided that they lose more votes by you can't get elected, so to speak, if you're a cigarette smoker, because there's enough people out there, enough of these fanatic lunatics that will decide that you're just not a credible human being if you smoke cigarettes. And so cigarette smokers don't get elected to office. They're not in the legislature, they're not in the Congress. So cigarette smokers have no representation in government. And so the majority indirectly abuses that fact to decide, well, look, we want to make easy money, we don't want to pay taxes, so we'll find some minority that can't complain about it, or doesn't complain about it, let's put it that way, to exploit. And so the whole purpose, and there's principles in the Constitution, and that's what's been lost here. And those principles are intended, the whole document is intended to protect minority rights. It doesn't exist to protect majority rights, because that's what they have, the Congress and the President, to protect their rights. The Constitution exists to protect fundamental principles, to keep those two branches of government under control, to keep them from abusing their authority and their power. And so the principle isn't hard to figure out. I mean, it's you don't discriminate. You don't abuse people because of the mere fact they lack political clout. And sadly, in this country, you know, I would hate to think what would be going on, you know, with the whole race thing. Yeah, there's plenty of reasons to be upset about what goes on, you know, in the black community, and you know, with the rap music and the violence and the drugs and the crap. But the fact is, you can't judge everybody by the behavior of some, and that's a principle. It's a principle that you don't punish the innocent to attack the guilty. And but you know, if blacks didn't go out in the street and protest, if they didn't make noise every time a cop decides he's going to shoot somebody for making a call on a cell phone, you know, who knows what would be going on? Who knows what kind of, you know, lynching would be going on if they didn't make noise, if they didn't organize and riot in the streets, so to speak. And they do that because we've segregated them, basically. You know, blacks still are segregated. They have pockets of dense population, and so they do have political clout. They do have political representation, and they can make enough noise to stop things from happening to them. But cigarette smokers, we're everywhere. We don't have pockets of population anywhere, and we don't have any organization. I mean, we don't have, you know, there's no cigarette church. There's no, you know, local grassroots cigarette organization. And so all we got is the tobacco companies, and they're not our allies. They're not defending smokers. They're defending their profits. And so cigarette smokers just don't have anybody protecting their interests. The only thing they have to protect them is the United States Constitution.